Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big topics by going straight to the source material. Today, we're tackling a massive question. As education keeps moving online, can technology actually make it a level playing field for every student? Or could it accidentally make things a whole lot worse? Let's dive in.
So, to really get this, let's forget the theory for a second and start with a person. This is Anne. She's a sharp chemistry student, but she also has ADHD, which can make things tough. Now, in a physical classroom, she might have some supports in place. But online, that's a whole different ballgame. Her story, right here, is really the key to everything we're about to unpack.
You see, Anne is what researchers would call a non-traditional student. And for a whole lot of students like her, this big promise of a super accessible digital campus, well, it doesn't always live up to the hype. In fact, for many, it can feel like the game is rigged right from the start.
Okay, so one of the biggest hurdles is something you can't even see. It's a psychological idea called social identity threat. And it's not just about what other people might do or say. It's that nagging fear inside your own head that you might, just might, confirm a negative stereotype about a group you belong to. And that fear, that alone is enough to actually hurt your grades.
So who are we talking about here? Well, it's a huge and growing group of people. We're talking about students who are the first in their family to go to college, students with disabilities like Anne, students from all sorts of different backgrounds. And you know, the research is pretty clear. They often feel a weaker sense of belonging and face a much tougher road, especially in online learning environments.
Right, and here's where it gets even more complicated, because nobody is just one thing, are they? A student can be the first in their family to go to college, and have a disability, and be from a minority ethnic group. All these identities pile on top of each other, creating these really unique, overlapping sets of challenges.
There's a name for this, and it's called intersectionality. Legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw really brought it to light talking about this incredible court case. A group of Black women tried to sue for discrimination, but the court said no. Why? Because the company hired Black people, who were men, and they hired women, who were white. The system literally couldn't see the problem because it could only look at race or gender, but not both at the same time.
So, we've got these deep, complex, very human problems. What's the answer? How do we build something better, something more fair? Well, it probably won't surprise you that a lot of people are pinning their hopes on technology.
A really cool idea at the heart of this is called universal design. You know the little ramp cut into the curb on a sidewalk? That's a perfect example. It was designed for people in wheelchairs, right? But it also helps parents with strollers, delivery guys with carts, me with my rolling luggage. That's the whole principle. Don't build for the average person and then add fixes later. Design it for everyone right from the start.
Okay, now imagine taking that idea and just putting it on steroids with AI. Picture this. A system is looking at how students are interacting with their online courses. A machine learning algorithm spots the subtle signs that a student, maybe like Anne, is starting to feel isolated or at risk. And then, bam, the system automatically sends them a little intervention, maybe a quick video from another student who felt the same way, just saying, hey, this is normal, you belong here.
I mean, the promise here is incredible, right? We're talking about using data not just to track students, but to proactively knock down barriers, to fight against structural discrimination, and to actually make educational equity a real thing. It sounds amazing, almost perfect. Yeah, almost perfect. But whenever we start talking about smart algorithms and very sensitive human data, there's always a but. There's always a flip side. So let's look at the peril hiding inside this promise.
I mean, think about it. An algorithm that's literally designed to promote fairness and belonging. Could that really go wrong? Could it actually do the exact opposite of what it's supposed to? Spoiler alert. Oh yeah, it absolutely can. Researchers in this space are waving some huge red flags. First up, privacy. This is incredibly personal data about how a student is feeling and performing. What happens when that data gets hacked? Not if, when. Then there's bias. If the historical data you feed the AI is already biased, the algorithm just gets really, really good at automating that same discrimination. And what about consent, or the damage you do to a student when the algorithm gets it wrong and labels them at risk when they're perfectly fine? And this gets even crazier because it turns out we can't even get the experts to agree on what fair actually means. Seriously. Should a fair algorithm make sure that different groups, say men and women, have similar outcomes? That's called group fairness. Or should it mean that any two individuals who are similar get treated similarly, no matter what group they're in? That's individual fairness. The problem is, these two ideas can sometimes flat out contradict each other.
So, which one do you tell the computer to aim for?
And that technical problem, that coding dilemma, it actually points to a much bigger, much more fundamental question. This isn't just about the code we write. It's about who gets to write it and whose stories we choose to believe. Quick, when you hear the word innovator, what's the first image that pops into your head? Is it a tech bro in a hoodie? A genius CEO giving a TED Talk? The stories we tell about where great ideas come from are a huge deal because they end up shaping who gets the money and the power to design the world we all live in. Let me give you a classic example. The story of Twitter. The official myth is that Jack Dorsey had this brilliant idea on a playground in 2006. But the real story? Well, it starts 2 years earlier on the streets of New York with protesters using a little tool called TXT Mob to coordinate and stay safe. It was those activists using these simple group texting tools who started using the @ symbol to talk to a specific person and the hashtag symbol, the hashtag, to organize conversations around a topic. That's right. @ replies and hashtags weren't invented in a shiny corporate boardroom. They were born out of necessity in the middle of a protest movement. As one of the original developers of that activist tool later wrote, the whole Silicon Valley genius story is basically a myth. And this isn't just about Twitter. It's a pattern we see over and over again. An idea is born in a marginalized community, then it gets spotted, scooped up, and repackaged by a powerful company who then rewrites history and takes all the credit. Okay, so if writing better code isn't the whole answer, and if the stories we tell ourselves about innovation are kind of broken, then what's the way forward? How do we build technology that can actually help people like Anne? Well, there's a growing movement that has a pretty powerful answer. It's called design justice. And it's a framework that basically takes the normal way of doing things and just flips it completely upside down. It says the people who are most affected by a design, especially those who are usually pushed to the margins, they should be the ones leading the whole process. It really all boils down to a change in one tiny little word, moving from designing for people to designing with people. It means students like Anne are no longer just data points to be fed into an algorithm. They are the experts in their own experience. They need a seat at the table, not as subjects, but as co-creators of the very tools that are meant to serve them. And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. This isn't just about software for schools or algorithms or even social media. It's about everything. In a world that's being rewritten by technology at lightning speed, we have to ask, who gets to hold the pen? Who should have the power to design our future? That is the question we all need to keep asking.